I only told one person in high school. And that was like my best friend who had recently come out to me as gay. So I was like, oh, you understand. And I told him, and I did keep it a secret from everyone else, just because I didn't know how like they would react. And honestly, I had a year left in high school, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I did tell one other person that summer. It was another really close friend of mine who also had come out as gay. So I pretty much told people that were other queer people who I thought would maybe understand, but I would never tell like any straight people. Because I just didn't think they would get it, and I didn't want to deal with it before I was like in college in a new environment, and actually going through it. It was just, speaking about it in the abstract, it was hard to explain to people, and so I didn't want to deal with that.
I took the really dumb route and came out to my entire school at the same time, like literally my entire school. Yep. Every senior in my school does a senior speech, and I came out during my senior speech. But why I did that, I really don't know. I would not do it again.
They reacted well. They reacted supportively. I recently just talked to one of them about like what did you think when I came out, and he was just like, much like what my thing is with not coming out. He's just like, well, I just didn't know what transgender was. And so I love you and I wanted to support you, but like, you know, it took me a while to actually figure out what you were going through so I could actually talk to you about it.
I asked people to start calling me Freddie and to use gender-neutral pronouns. And after that, I kind of, since I did that publicly, I was expected to talk about things a good bit more, but I kind of was just like, all I know is I'm not a lady, I don't want to talk about it. And then, not until I was like very like solid and confident in my male identity and using male pronouns and starting to physically transition, like that's when I started becoming more comfortable about talking about myself and my identity and like trans and gender issues in a larger sense.
One of my biggest fears was just being afraid that I wasn't going to be able to be like man enough, whatever that means, I'm not really sure. But both with friends and family, I guess like not being able to live up to who I thought I should be. So a lot of it was like more internal for me.
Biggest fear was just like dealing with it, because I don't like to deal with things that aren't easy. I just want everything to be really simple and really easy, and yeah, I didn't want to deal with it because it's hard when there's just always that possibility that you know, when you tell somebody anything about yourself, that they're gonna reject it and not support you, no matter like how big or small it is.
I was really scared of coming out to my family. I mean, like, coming out to your friends is one thing, because you've known them for like only a few years, and even if you've known them like your whole life, like, it's different because family have been there with you like the entire time. Whether it's like from your birth or from their birth, you know, and so they have this really much more concrete idea of who you are.
I was definitely terrified about coming out to my family and my friends back home because I was worried that, for one, yeah, I avoid conflict like the plague. I hate conflict anyway. I hate tough conversations. I am so like, please just let me sit in the background silently and let other people deal with it. So that was definitely hard, having to actually have conversations with people about tough stuff. And then also I was worried that they wouldn't believe me and that I would have to try to convince them, which did end up happening. And that's just the worst, because you're like, I can't explain to you how I am who I am. I just need you to accept it.
I was afraid of radically altering someone's perception of who I was, and who they had essentially, like, for my parents, essentially raised me to be. And I was like, it's not that I'm a different person now that I've come out, but like I'm a little truer to myself.
I came out to my family via a long email, like a ridiculously long email, which I realized wasn't the most like brave thing to do. But my dad lives outside of the country and I can't call him, and so I figured I wasn't going to call the rest of my family. So I sent them this really long email and let them respond. And then my mom from that sent me back like this really long email explaining that I wasn't trans and that this was ridiculous. My dad was just kind of like, yeah, whatevs. And my brother never responded because he's like me in the way that he's just like, conflict, I don't care, like I don't want to deal with it. But I talked to him later about it and he was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Like, I get it.
My mom and I had like a huge fight, and that sort of devolved into us talking about just like things we were mad about or things we were upset about regarding the other person. And as it was sort of winding down, I was like, you know what, this is a very open, emotional time. Maybe I'll tell my mom that I want to be a girl, and I'm sure she'll be fine with it. And I did, and then I cried, and then she totally denied that I felt that way. She was just like, no, you don't. Like, you're just different. You want to make... It was a lot of you want to be different because I was into, like, punk and hardcore and stuff, and so, like, just because I have, like, countercultural tendencies, like, they thought I was, just trying to be, like, so different, because some of my friends had, like, come out as gay, and so I was like, well, what's the next level after that?
The first person that I really, like, sat down and had a conversation with was my mom, just because she's, like, my confidant, which was a terrible idea because she really was like, no, you're not, just kidding, like, never. So that was a really bad idea. Because I wasn't really, like, solid in my identity yet, and I just wanted someone to talk to, and she was a bad idea.
Later on, my greatest resource was the therapist that I started seeing, because he connected me with all of the people that I needed to be in touch with for the physical transition, and so he was a really good resource.
And it's really taken until, like, very recently for them to come to terms with it. We went to therapy together, and even after that, it was a while that we couldn't say the word transgender when we talked about it. We were like, that thing that's happening to you. Even after I was, like, on hormones for, like, 6 months, and we couldn't talk about it. But now we can, and it's fine, and they're super
I
supportive.
guess I should have like taken into account that I knew a lot more than my parents did, and really like thinking about how to talk to them in a way that they would understand it. Because even like a lot of the words that I was using, they were like, whoa, like I don't even know what these words mean. And so like breaking it down into like really simple language, and it's also really hard to explain something that somebody's never even imagined and really never think about.
Just maybe accepting it earlier and like taking steps to make my transition easier instead of just denying it until the moment that I started transitioning.
Right.
Just so worried about like how I would be seen in society and like how I would function in society, because they just never seen a trans person being normal, like living a normal life. And I think that if we had more like widely available like images of transgender people living completely normal lives, it would be a lot easier for people to come out because it wouldn't be such a scary new thing.